Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you.
Evening.
Thank y'all for coming. Ms. Moore?
Good evening. Mr. Badura.
Here.
Mr. Runyon.
Here.
Mr. Newman.
Here.
Ms. Plow. Ms. Devine.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mayor Benjamin.
So thank you, Mr. Davis, members of council, for joining us this evening. It should be brief. I'm going to ask Chief Holbrook to come forward and just talk about a discussion of public safety operations. I shared with you early this morning, a kind of update or review of many of the measures that have been taken over the last several weeks with the unfortunate tragic events in Charleston and going forward, the continued discussion with the Confederate flag debate. As of early this morning, as we all know, the flag will be brought down, I believe, in a small, brief ceremony tomorrow. And with that said, as I noted in the memo I shared with you from Chief Holbrook, just based off a lot of intelligence and out of an abundance of caution, the chief has been briefing me steadily during this period of time, and there are some additional measures that we think would be appropriate and certainly worthy of your consideration. And with the escalation of the flag coming down as of this morning's action by the state legislature, we thought that it was prudent to go ahead and bring this to the table for your consideration. And with that, I'll let him give some more details. To include street closings tomorrow as well, we want to notice the public of those additional measures as well.
Sure, okay, thank you. Ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, as you know, over the last 3 weeks, we've seen some extraordinary events, tragic events, and historical events take place that have directly impacted the city of Columbia and the Columbia Police Department, and how we've responded to assist our partnering agencies with state law enforcement division as well as Department of Public Safety. As we have seen rallies and assemblies occur on State House grounds and the effect that it's had on traffic and pedestrian vehicle traffic in Columbia, and then the other calls for service that have been generated from such a assembly, it caused me to have a discussion with the city manager to consider as we continue to plan forward with some of the debate that was going along with the flag and future events that we know. We have at least 5 events planned within the next week to consider examination of some what I could characterize as extraordinary circumstances, ordinances that assist us in providing protection and safety for those that are participating in lawful assembly and in the course of these rallies. And so that's what is before you this evening. Again, we have relied on human sources of intelligence to keep us apprised of groups that may be assembling and exercising their free speech. And we've also relied on investigative techniques that we have at our disposal. And we've also monitored social media very closely. And we've had very good dialogue with organizers of groups that have assembled, and it's been, really a very peaceful, productive process thus far. We know coming up in the near future we have certain groups that have a negative connotation related to them, and that's what we just want to be prepared for. And then we've seen the historic event take place today, and again, I think this positions us to deal with anything that might come our way, and it puts us in a proactive mode as opposed to being reactive. Street closures that we're considering, as you know, over the last few weeks, we have conducted street closures as needed. Typically, if we have an assembly that occurs on State House grounds, especially if it tends to become somewhat chaotic and come out, towards the street, we have found that temporary closures of Gervais Street has an immediate impact on the tenor of the assembly. So that's something we've exercised. What we're doing tomorrow, beginning at 9 a.m. At the latest, we will close Gervais Street between Assembly and Sumter, and Main Street as well, going down to Lady Street. Will allow access on Main Street for local business and folks that have a reason to be, in the various businesses or offices that are affected. But we will restrict any vehicular traffic on Gervais Street for an indefinite period of time, depending on what goes on the grounds. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? I know that is a major artery which will impact traffic flow. So,
Yes, sir.
any questions or comments?
Chief, reading the ordinance, this would be a misdemeanor and punishable by 30 days. Just a question, just in light of, and certainly we would hope that we wouldn't be in a position where we would have a incident, definitely not a major incident, but thinking about what happened a few months back in Texas, and I remember they had some difficulties in the number of people that they had to arrest and having a facility to hold those folks. And so just being forward-thinking and being prepared, have we thought about if we have any major incidents where there's a significant number of arrests, are we able to accommodate that?
Yes, ma'am. We have had a number of collaborative briefings with our partnering agencies, and there are a number of contingency plans that have been in place for the last several weeks and will continue to be in place as we move forward. And in DPS, Highway Patrol, Bureau of Protective Services, and SLED, they handle things that occur on State House grounds, and we're responsible for everything in and around the grounds and traffic, and then we assist one another as needed. That has been a seamless process thus far, and in part of those plans, we have built out addresses, arrests, and transportation of those that have would be arrested. I'm very proud to report that my observations thus far and the conduct not only on our officers but our state partners has been just exemplary, and the behavior of those that have assembled to rally has been passionate, but is consistent with what I've seen from our citizens of this city. It's just it's been controlled. Everybody has a very passionate opinion, and but all in all, very well behaved. It just makes you proud to be part of this city. But to answer your question, we do have plans to deal with that. But let me also say, this particular ordinance focuses specifically on carrying weapons, which is consistent and in line with what's already in place for State House grounds. It's just extending that. But just like any law, state law, federal law, or city ordinance, we exercise discretion, common sense in enforcing those laws. So, a big part of this would be education through signage and through us educating folks. If someone would arrive at a protest or a rally that would be carrying a weapon that we would identify, we would simply, make it clear what areas you're, prohibited by law for carrying or by this ordinance, and what areas that, you are able to exercise your right to carry a weapon.
So that was my second question. Had you identified where the 250 feet is all the way around?
And Mr. Davis, if I might, as you are moving into the actual discussion of item 2, if you would allow me to just read it into the record for you as you continue your discussion of ordinance number 2015-066, emergency ordinance for the temporary ban of weapons, and that is all weapons within a 250-foot area surrounding the South Carolina State House grounds. And yes, ma'am, there should be a map attached, and I don't know if that was printed for you all, but there is a map outlining the 250-foot perimeter.
We got it.
That is the perimeter, okay. Senate.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I see within the broader perimeter here, off the State House grounds, obviously, we're taking in quite a number of privately owned
Yes.
Properties. Would that affect the right to lawful carry on those privately held, if those privately held properties allow lawful carry within them? Is
Yeah.
it just, it's just in the public spaces?
Yes,
or-
sir.
Okay.
Public
So-
spaces only.
Okay.
And this, we selected the 250-foot mark. Essentially, the goal was to capture the streets that surrounded that really is what makes up the curtilage of the State House grounds. And yes, if you're looking down, it does capture pieces of buildings, and this would only apply to public spaces.
So for instance, there's some apartments down here, if someone has a firearm in their apartment, is they lawfully allowed to do?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's
And if I might, Mr. Davis, there was one amendment as we were trying to get this to you all this afternoon. The last whereas, it should not have the word concealed in that last whereas. You all now have the final version, but there was one version, I think, that may have gotten posted, and we will certainly repost that if this is approved, and make sure that it's very clear to the public that this is extending the same law as applicable now to the State House grounds, where it is all weapons, not concealed or otherwise. So it bans all weapons.
Okay.
And when you say all weapons, that includes, I think most people consider firearms, but that would include knives and ammunition and all that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good.
Chief, going back to road closures, because tomorrow is a regular day for many people that is traveling on Gervais Street. How long do you think the road closures will continue? When you will reopen the roads?
It would be as needed, but we're very sensitive to that, and the minute that we feel we're able to open it back up, we make those adjustments quickly, and that's kind of that's ebbed and flowed, but by and large, the last week and a half specifically, we have not had to exercise any road closures, so, we will, out of precaution, at 9 o'clock in the morning, but as soon as we're able to assess and determine that it's, that traffic will not impact the assembly or the ceremony that's going on, we'll open it right back up.
Okay. Any other questions?
So move, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Would you call the roll, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Runyon?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
I want to say thank you to the council again for your support, and the new version, the most up-to-date version, has been posted online. Thank you so much.
I move to
Thank the
adjourn.
staff and
Second.
the department for having the foresight to have the necessary guidance in place so that everybody pretty much knows what their role is, and that we really do this in the best interest of safety of everybody in the capital city.
Yeah, and I would like to just second that Chief, I just think you're doing a great job, and had a conversation with one of the folks who heads up the Merchants Association today, and they were just singing your praises about how forward-looking you are, and how poised in the way that you handle even difficult situations. So thank you, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I was just going to third it, but particularly, I think for us, of course, we haven't met in a long time, and we don't sometimes realize how much goes on when we're actually not here.
Exactly.
And hearing a whole lot. But, I was out at the State House this weekend and saw the chief. And, in addition, I think in addition to all this stuff, extra stuff that we're doing, we've got the regular stuff that they have to attend to. And, we know we've had some incidents within the last week that our officers have had to attend to as well. And so I just thank you for always being very diligent and working with our partners to make sure that the State House and everything that happens there has had the necessary attention, but not ignoring and having any lapse in what we're
Regular.
normally here to do.
Very good.
Way to stay proactive, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Badura?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes?
Motion, he
So
Second.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Runyon?
Aye.
Mr. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.